This video is for parents of Mr. Camacho's social studies class and pretty much any parent that goes to Grant County Middle School. And what this will be a small summary of standards-based grading, as this is a new technique in grading and holding students accountable. It's much different from the techniques that we as parents were used to when we went to school as far as grading, and hopefully this will answer some questions that you might have as far as how your child is being measured in the classroom today, so that you can help configure their grade. And behind me is something that should look somewhat familiar with you, as this is an analysis sheet for one of our most recent exams. And this is something you're going to see in every classroom as long as your child is going to the middle school. Starting on the far left-hand side, you'll see a list of different things. These are learning targets, and the different learning targets are listed specifically. These things are specific skills that we teachers would like for each student to learn. So formerly, when you took a test when you were in school, you would get one grade for it. That is no longer the case. Today we now get 4, 5, or 6 grades, depending on the amount of learning targets that are involved in each test. And so when you see this particular thing, you want to look at those learning targets, because these are skills that have been defined for that unit of study. And so those are big deals, the learning targets. The next column over on the analysis sheet is what's called learning check. That's this column right here. And the learning check column, it's blank on this sheet, but when you receive it, each child gets a learning check. I would equate this to quizzes. When you were in school, you took quizzes, and quizzes were little updates or checks as to how much you've learned, and that's what that grade is there for. And generally when we take learning checks, this will be something shortly after we've delivered a lesson to measure whether the child has learned what they were supposed to or not. Now, these are grades that will go into the grade book in Infinite Campus, but these grades are going to change. They get replaced by the most recent score, which will be the common assessment, which is later on, which will be more associated to a test grade or unit test. So, lesson is delivered over these topics. After the lesson is delivered, teachers will give learning checks for each of the learning targets. Students will take the learning check to measure how well do I know each learning target. They'll either know if they make 100 right here, then they know I know that learning target. I'm in good shape. If they make a 90 on it, then they're progressing. Do they know the target? Kinda, but not quite. They haven't mastered it yet. And 80% would demonstrate limited knowledge as far as mastering the standard. 70 would be performing below standard, and 60 would be not yet. And obviously, generally this translates 100 equals A, 90 equals B, 80 equals C, 70 equals D, and 60 equals an F. That's what we're used to seeing. Now, as parents, we're used to relating C to average grade. That is no longer the case. An 80 would not be average, because as you can see on, and I'll take you over here to another chart. I'll take you to this chart right here. And as you can see, 80 means limited. And by being limited, that means that we're not good enough yet. And that's not average. So we really want to promote mastering. As we've identified all these skills, we want to make sure that we pick up and that we get all our skills to mastering. So if you want your child to be an all-A student, that is easily done by each learning target. And you don't want your child to be a C student, because that does not mean they are average. It means that they have limited knowledge about all the learning targets that we expect them to know. So we really want to promote as parents to our kids that they get 100s or 4s or mastering on their target. Now, going from left to right on the analysis sheet, you see multiple choice, and then there's an ORQ on here. This right here, from this point over, is the test grade, or common assessment. And so a lot of times when we grade by units, we have these grades. These are the test questions, and there's usually, in social studies 6th grade, there's 5 per learning target, and if they miss 1 out of the 5, that means they're going to be progressing, which means they will get a 90 in their score here. Whatever their score is under a common assessment score for the learning target, that's the most recent grade. That's the grade that goes into Infinite Campus last. This is the most important column as a parent that you want to look at when you're trying to measure your child's grade, will be the common assessment score. Now, that's the grade you want to know. Does my child need to retake this learning target assessment retake or not? So when you see that score, and when kids are looking at that, if that grade is not a 60, they think it's okay right now. And that's something we want to promote, that 70 isn't good enough, 80 isn't good enough, 90, we can tolerate a little bit, but we really want to promote, why not get 100? Why not master that learning target? You see, what happens is for some students is they'll do well on 3 out of 5 of these targets. And they'll be okay because their overall average grade will put them somewhere in the B range, when they only really need to focus on retaking 2 of the targets and they can become an A student. So achieving an A should be easier under this system of grading than what it's been in the past, because of the ability to retake assessments as many times until you master or can demonstrate mastery into a subject. But what we have to avoid as parents is allowing our kids to settle for completing or passing as opposed to trying to achieve that highest score. So you'll notice some of the language here. We will equate 100 with mastering, 90 with progressing, 80 with limited, 70 with below standard, and 60 with not yet. We will go through for each question. Now in social studies, we've ordered the first 5 deal with learning target 1. The next 5 are learning target 2. In sub-subject areas, they mix up their questions to meet the different targets. They scramble them up, but they can easily organize them on the analysis sheet, and you can see which question goes with which target. And then a grade is calculated from there. ORQ, you have a score, same scoring standard, and it equates to the same number on Infinite Canvas, with mastering being 100, progressing 90, limited 80, 70 below standard, and 60 not yet. Now, when it comes to what grade goes in Infinite Campus, again, the most recent score is what your child has retained. That's what goes in Infinite Campus. A lot of parents are concerned that, well, I'm worried about my child's grade going down. And what we are interested in here at Grant County Middle School is what they know, what they're able to do, and what they're able to retain at the latest measurement of the skill. And so as a kid who's made 100 on an assessment one time and then 2 weeks later not able to replicate that, does that child really know that content? Do they know that learning target? That's definitely a question that we want to be able to answer. And so if they know something one time but then don't know it 2 weeks later, then we're not necessarily sold that they know the content. So we want to make sure that they know it for sure. So the most recent grade, whether that grade is higher or lower than a previous one, is what goes in the grade book. Hopefully this has answered all of your questions about standards-based grading. Feel free to contact the teacher at Grant County Middle School if you have any other questions about the assessment process or the retake process. Thank you.